Hello, this time procedural generation.
My name is Kana, and I'm making a first-person action RPG with tabletop dice mechanics in the style of similar games from the 90s and early 2000s. If that sounds like your kind of thing, please like and subscribe.
When I say procedural generation, I actually mean assisted procedural generation, as in the generation that can take human input and generate assets from that input. In the future, I'll be integrating this into full procedural generation for less important dungeons. Before I got into the game design, I actually cut my teeth on map creation for older games such as Quake, Half-Life, and newer titles like Half-Life Alyx. What is playing in the background is one of my Quake levels. Using principles that I have learned being a mapper, I understand that good dungeons really do boil down to just rooms and corridors. Rooms focus on immediate encounters, either conveying information or providing a challenge that needs to be overcome, whereas corridors convey players from one encounter to the next. But good corridors also ask the player to consider the layout of the dungeon or map, or whatever, as a whole. You could argue that Metrovanias are nothing but corridors with continuous focus on the player understanding the dungeon and learning its layout. So here's my requirements. It must be intuitive to a human, mostly me, simple enough to work with multiple dungeon generation methods, allow for arbitrary room sizes, and allow for arbitrary door positions. My game is in 3D, so having everything at the same height would be boring. And here's my solution. As you can see, I can add or remove rooms and corridors. I can also set the rooms to be a specific type of room, either for challenges, story, or control flow through the dungeon. The corridors can create some quite extreme ramps to meet the changing elevations of room doors. The dev assets are an extreme example to test that navigatable corridors are still generated. I can also control if the dungeon is mirrored, or how big the minimum gap between the rooms should be, or even how long the corridor's ramp should be. You may also notice that some of the rooms have odd sculptures in them. These are randomly selected assets that allow rooms to have varied looks and appearances on top of the random room selection. Lastly, I can unpack the dungeon into its components, allowing me to manually edit the dungeon, should I need something more complex for the specific dungeon, or I need just a set piece room. Obviously, the quality of the dungeon is determined by its content. The rooms provided for generation need to be handmade to provide interesting encounters and puzzles, something I'm going to be working on later. With the dungeon in place, I want to create a vertical slice of all the elements. That will be monsters, combat, and a dungeon or two. Well, I've got my work cut out for me, so until next time.